Welcome to Brand Lift. I'm Tori, Sikkema, and I'm excited for you to be joining me today. It is a beautiful fall day in New Jersey. The leaves are starting to change, kind of, but what I'm excited about is the humidity is going down. My guest today is Molly Schoneveld. Now, Molly is in PR and marketing, and we're going to talk all about that. Molly is known for her ability to build visible and personality driven brands in the lifestyle space. Molly began her career in Hollywood, of all places, working directly under Academy Award winning producer Brian Grazer, and was soon recruited to powerhouse entertainment firm PMK, where she worked with A-list talents like Kevin Bacon, 6 Degrees of Separation, Gerald Butler, and Olivia Wilde. She started her PR firm, the Storied Group, in 2008 and soon developed a niche expertise at the intersection of entertainment and lifestyle, representing several interior designers that had celebrity clients, which was her foray into the high-end design world in Los Angeles. Since then, she has worked with design and lifestyle clients across the country, helping them publish their projects, launch stores, books, and product collaborations. Wow. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. We're going to dive right in because you and I have been talking a little in the green room, and I needed to hit record because we just hit it off immediately. So I want to dive into our first question, which is, what are the key trends in marketing for the home industry that you foresee in 2024? And how can interior designers leverage these trends?
We're starting hot here. So, what I'm starting to see more of is that design influencers have really started to solidify their place within the home industry. And I think that's only going to get bigger. This year, House Beautiful launched their first ever creative class, and my client, Drew Michael Scott of Lone Fox, was part of that. I think magazines are really starting to leverage the power that these influencers have in the home industry. And so you're starting to see it across not only in editorial, but also in partnerships. I'm actually headed to New York on Wednesday for a partnership that Drew is doing with Architectural Digest, but it's an advertising it's an event that he's co-hosting with AD on behalf of a brand in the home space. And so I think we're going to start seeing more creative ways that magazines drive revenue, because at the end of the day, I think people forget that publishing is a business, and it's not just about publishing pretty homes. It's about driving content that people want to read, and therefore advertisers want to advertise in these different verticals. And it's not just in a print magazine anymore. And in fact, I think you're seeing that less and less. It's becoming more digital driven, events driven, experience driven. And so I think that's really going to start to inform the industry as a whole. But at the end of the day, marketing trends, it's a funny thing, because yes, I think that it's important to understand, the new and exciting thing. However, I think you really have to always go back to the basics of marketing when you're thinking about if you're trying to level up your business and get more of your dream clients, you really have to go back to the basics of, who's it for? And I think we can all get caught up in thinking that, oh, I'm for everyone, or, I want to have clients in all different states and countries, when the reality might be that you need to really focus on where you currently are and just knocking it out of the park and becoming like the absolute best design firm in your
Love it.
city, and then go out from there. You really have to start first. And it's, I graduated from the Seth Godin marketing seminar. So I'm like very much of the Seth Godin marketing school and philosophy of people like us do things like this. And so, I encourage everyone to really dive in and understand what marketing even means at the core before you start jumping on every trend.
I think that's excellent. And specifically niching down, really knowing who your audience is. Who do you really want to have that intimate conversation with? Because you can't have it with everyone. It's like everything. So
Totally.
those are great insights. Okay. In terms of marketing budgets, and this is a biggie, where do you recommend interior designers and home brands invest their marketing dollars first for the best results? And when we talk about budgets and working with PR and marketing professionals, give us some insights about what interior designers realistically need to be looking at.
I mean, first and foremost, it has to be photography. So I'm sure that you're super happy by that. But because
A
before
little
you
bit.
even hire a publicist, you have to have the basics really mastered. And that also means a beautiful website that's thoughtful and really speaks to the branding that you want to put out into the world. I think, I get so many new business inquiries, and they're from big firms in their various states that are really killing it from a numbers perspective and square feet perspective. They're doing these enormous homes, but they want clout and they want to be
Yeah.
featured in AD and World of Interiors and all these publications that really are just so elevated. And so but then you look at their website and you're just like, okay, well, I can see that you've invested in SEO, but that's a whole different strategy. And that's not to say that you shouldn't invest some in SEO, but it can't be the only thing. Photography is the thing that helps me sell your projects to the media. It's
Yeah.
also what clients care about. I have clients that get caught up in just the funniest things on their website. It's like because video is so hot right now. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a video, but if you think that a client is going to hire you because they've watched your employees like looking at their computer in a video, that's just not what people care about. They want to see your work. They want to feel like they connect to your style of design. And I mean, that's why I hired a designer for my new home in Raleigh. Like I connected with their style. I saw they were featured in a magazine and I was like, oh my God, I love their style. Like I want that for my house. And I didn't really care so much about everything else, but it was the photography and the editorial spread that first connected me to them.
Yeah, you and I are gonna dive into photography a little bit like we did in the green room,
Yeah.
but I 100% agree with you. I love reels. You can use and something I talked about, at a talk that I did down in High Point last fall is take that imagery, you can make reels with it.
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be video content. Video has its place, certainly, but I think the classics and timelessness are photographs and photography.
I
So I
totally agree. I mean, I
yeah,
think that, it drives me crazy, this whole trending sounds thing on Instagram, because what it's done is stifled everyone's creativity. It's, propelled people that aren't adding any value to anything because they've used a trending sound. And it's,
yeah,
to me, if that's your strategy, it's eventually going to fail. I just, and in fact, as I'm talking to Drew this week about this event that we're doing in New York, he's creating some content. We're going to New York Design Center and he's creating some content there. And, he's required to do certain things for this event. And, they were like, oh, you could do a reel or you could do carousels. And he's like, no one's going to watch a reel of like a recap of this event. No one cares. And that was very eye opening for me because I'm like, you know what? He's so right. And I'm guilty of doing that too. Like if I go to like Legends in LA, I mean, I lived in LA for 23 years until April. I'm now in Raleigh, but, going to Legends and then we do like this recap reel. He's absolutely right. No one cares. No one cares. But what they do care about is what did I learn at Legends? What are some of the
Yes.
trends that editors mentioned or the designers are seeing? And so I think it just always comes back to trying to put your shoes in that of the people that are going to be watching your content. And I think I'm never going to get tired of seeing beautiful photos.
Well, and I think too that it's about serving your audience.
Mm-hmm.
How can you help them build their business, help them achieve their goals? It's not about you
Mm-hmm.
until it's about you, right? Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
about you until it's about you. And so help serve your client and help others get to where they want to be, and then you'll get where you want to be.
Right.
It's a good working model. Um, can you share an example of an innovative marketing campaign you've worked on to support interior designers or home brands, and what made it so successful?
Sure. I think there's a couple. The hammer and spear, since you mentioned that in my intro,
Yeah.
I'd like to dive into that a little bit because that was such a success. So Kristen Cunningham was the face of HGTV at the time that she hired my company. And she originally hired my company because she was going to have a show on the OWN network. And so we did entertainment PR at the time. And, we were going to be promoting the show. Anyway, that did not go as planned. And so she and her husband Scott decided that they wanted to open a mom and pop shop downtown in the arts district. And the arts district at the time really was just not any, I mean, it was just on the cusp of what it is today. And so they were one of the first design firms and creative people to actually
Wow.
move down there and open a business. And it was so successful. I mean, we really positioned it. I mean, this has been years ago now, but at the time, the hot thing was Urban Daddy. And so we really wanted to position them as the cool kids. And so we really, everything that we did in terms of our press outreach and everything, we wanted to make sure that we were aligning them with that messaging. And it really worked. And they ended up, I mean, they got everything. They got so much press from just the opening. And then they ended up expanding into a larger front facing space into like the main area of the downtown arts district. And so they launched a design firm and they needed to really solidify themselves as part of the high end Los Angeles design scene. And so, getting their first project published, it really was important because that was going to set the tone for how this was going to go. And their first project, their client was the founder of Tom's Shoes. And so we got that
Cool.
project in AD, and that was the first project that I ever placed in AD, and it was incredible. They reshot it. Roger Davies shot it. It was incredible, and like that really just it just kind of soared from there. And they ended up closing their store downtown during COVID, but they still have their studio in La Cienega, and like they're just doing extremely high end projects. And their store that was a mom and pop store is now a high end showroom. It's a very, very
Amazing.
different business model, but the press and how we really, you know, debuted them as going from HGTV to this was just so important. And it worked. So I'm really, really proud of that.
What a great bridge. What a
Mm-hmm.
great, conduit from going from HGTV to just kind of coming into your own as a brand And I can only imagine the satisfaction that you had to see this
Oh
to
yeah.
fruition.
Yeah.
And you went to the top of the mountain. Hello, Architectural Digest. It is
Yeah.
the top of the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And it's a similar, it's similar almost with Drew Michael Scott from Lone Fox. I mean, he's a content creator, but he's so much more than that. And the thing that has separated him from a lot of other creators in his space is his ability to get top tier press. It's not that hard to get apartment therapy, but it's hard to get a YouTube series with Architectural Digest, and we did that for him, and we got him part of House Beautiful's creator class, and he didn't have a single piece of press when he hired us. And now I
so
mean,
what is
he
it?
is.
Yeah, so Molly, what is it? What is his secret sauce?
Well, I
What
think
is it?
I think exactly what you just said. It's that it
Mm,
factor. But I'll tell you something else, especially with Drew more than anything else. And I was having this conversation with actually a journalist yesterday about Drew, who's writing a piece on him. Um, he is consistent. And he just hit 1 million followers on Instagram, which
wow.
he did in such a short amount of time. And he said that he has not missed a week of posting on YouTube since he was like, I think in the last 10 years. And it just goes to
10
show,
years.
yeah. And obviously he is doing content at the highest level.
Yeah.
He is such a perfectionist when it comes to aesthetics. And even when we're working with media brands, he isn't afraid to have an opinion about their, their thumbnail image on YouTube. He'll be like, "Oh, can we please ask them to use this and change?" I mean, he really cares, because at the end of the day, it's a reflection of
Yeah.
him.
Well,
And
it's
so,
standards, his
so he's,
standards.
yeah, so he's, and I do feel like some of this is his age. He's not old enough yet to have been, you know, rejected as much as someone maybe in their 40s. I mean, I like look back at myself at 20 and think how fearless I was, and now it's like,
Mhm.
I've been rejected. And so you lose some of that boldness, I think, which is really
Yes.
sad. But he's just not afraid to have an opinion, but more than that, he does the work. He puts
Yes.
his butt in the chair, and he shows up, and he does his 2 videos a week on YouTube, and he posts to Instagram, and he stays up until 2 in the morning to finish projects. He's not only balancing his own channel, which is how he makes the majority of his money, but he's also managing working with brands. And he has some clients. I mean, he has a
Amazing.
huge celebrity client that he can't talk about, we'll never be able to talk about it, but he's managing a lot of things. And so he doesn't just say he's a professional. He doesn't just
Yes.
say, I don't feel like doing this today.
Well, I have a lot of respect for his work ethic, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. He has a
Yeah.
tremendous work ethic and, content. So segueing into content and creation of content, and we're gonna now talk about interior project photography, and because that's obviously what I do, and, I'm very blessed to be a successfully published and architecturally published photographer. That is a badge of honor that I wear. I worked really hard for it. I'm dedicated to my craft. I love what I do. It's not work. It's my creative outlet, and it's just my heartbeat. It's what I'm drawn to do. But there's a lot of mistakes out there, and I know you've seen them on your end come across your desk, and a designer saying, "I really want to be published. Here's what I've got." So, talk to me about what are some of the top mistakes that interior designers are making with their photography?
The first is hiring a photographer within the style that, like, if you want to be in a magazine that prefers dark and moody photography, don't hire a wedding photographer. I always say, the portfolio of the photographer, that is going to show you what you're going to get. So you
Absolutely.
shouldn't say like, oh, I'm sure they could do this and put a filter on it or whatever. That's the first mistake. The second mistake would just be lighting. A design client of mine recently, and she's been in this business for a very long time, and has been published, but designers think that they should leave lights turned on because it will
Ah,
accentuate their lighting fixtures, when in fact the opposite is true. And certain photographers, when done correctly, can get it right with certain lights, but
yes.
more often than not, it just casts this weird, like yellowish glow. They look like real estate images. It just doesn't work for editorial. So I encourage all of you to look in your magazines, and like, you're very rarely going to see an image in a print magazine where lights are turned on. Lamps, sconces, chandeliers, like it's all natural lighting. Um, and then, thirdly, I would say a mistake is not investing in an interior stylist, because there is a very different art to styling for editorial. And what we're seeing more and more of now is less perfection and way more of that lived in, undone, something's a little bit off, that
Yeah.
just tells a story. And so I think for a lot of publications, gone are the days of like 2 dozen perfect roses bunched together in a vase. It's more of this wild, undone, like, a daisy strewn in just a bud. You know what I mean? Like it's
Oh,
just, and
yes.
stylists really understand.
Yes.
We did a reshoot for, when I say reshoot, meaning we had scouting shots and the magazine reshot the project for
Yes.
Better Homes and Gardens. And I asked the stylist on that shoot, is there something that you would never use? Like, is there something that editors can't stand? Something that you would just, you'd be like, oh gosh, don't ever use that. And she said orchids. And that always just stuck with me, because you see them all the time in interior designers' project photos.
Yes.
But it's rare that you would actually see that in an editorial image. And it's not that orchids aren't beautiful in real life. They
Agreed.
just, they don't tell the story that most editors want to tell these days.
They're not translating well. They're not
Right.
translating well. Well, okay. So those are three great things, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I want to take styling a little bit further um, because I agree. You have to tell a visual story. It has to stand out to the editors in a way that's going to then translate to their readership.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I said before, it's not about you, it's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about the interior designer, it's not about the stylist, it's about the reader of the publication that you then want to grace the pages of. So, can we back that up to styling and what editors are looking for? And I'm sure editors are thinking to themselves, what can connect to our readership? What hasn't been done before? What can make us stand out in the industry? So, Molly, what are you seeing? What are editors saying about styling, about trends, about moodiness of the vibe of the photography? What is going to help some interior designer get published?
The best thing that I can tell you is that you need to study the magazines that you want to be in, because every magazine has a different style. That's why there's different magazines. And, in the beginning, if you're going to style your own photo shoot, then I hate to say copy, but to a degree, you're going to have to take elements from what the magazine is using, until you develop your own editorial eye.
Mhm.
There's no like fast and true thing. I'm sure Colin King would disagree with me, but I'm not a stylist.
I
I can
love
just
him.
tell you that, again, from what I said before, it's just this very much undone, lived in, like that's the trend that we're seeing now. Just, getting away from this perfect room that looks like no one lives there.
Yes.
Um, you know.
I love that. I love that. And I agree with you. I think that gracing the pages of a publication, it has to be something special. It has to be a story that hasn't been told yet, or told in a different way, or from a perspective that's going to connect with the readership. And so once you do get published, once you have great photography and great styling, you've been published, how do you then leverage this press to grow your brand?
So there's a few ways. The most obvious would be to make sure that you have a press highlight on your Instagram, have a press page on your website. I think it's a great opportunity in your newsletter. And this is going back to Golden Door, which is my client, which Victoria Hagan designed. So there is a design element to that client. But,
Beautiful.
during COVID, Golden Door had to build outdoor spa setups, like these beautiful huts, because people didn't want to have massage therapists come to their rooms. And so I got them a story in Vanity Fair, and what they did was they pulled quotes from that story and used that in their newsletter to say, Vanity Fair showcased our outdoor spa experience, and this is what they had to say. And it's so much more powerful when someone else talks about you rather than you talking about you. So if you get an amazing profile, you can pull quotes from that and use those as testimonials on your website. Use them as, content for your social media. It's really the biggest thing that can give you credibility is saying that you've been published. I think even more than awards, because I think that while industry awards are great, my company's won industry awards, but no one outside my industry has ever heard of those awards. So
Right,
unless
right.
you are winning like AD 100 or A list from El Decor, or something super super top tier that consumers know, I just don't think that it's gonna make that big of an impact in the way that getting press does.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And I think that it helps. We talked about content again and Drew and why he's such a superstar. It's leveraging all of that and giving it giving it life, or breathing life into what you're putting out there, that's actually going to help and serve your audience again. It's not that self-serving, hey, look at me, I'm in this cool place. But no, here I'm in this cool place, and this is what I learned, and this is what can help you, these 4 tips, or this is what I learned. So I think that's really powerful, Molly. And I think that the more people kind of positioned and kind of flip the script in their mindset of how they think about press, how they think about content, how they think about an upcoming project that needs to be photographed, hiring those professionals, investing in the project is going to then be a full package to bring to you across your desk to say, hey, yeah, I can definitely shop this and help you get some press from it.
Totally. And I would say that, when you're hiring a photographer, something that will help us help you is really understanding your contract ahead of time and knowing what you need to negotiate ahead of time. You and I were sort of talking about this a
Oh,
little bit, but,
yes.
designers a lot of times don't understand what they're even signing. And I think a big misconception is that when you pay a photographer for your photo shoot, that you then own those images. And there are times that you can do a full buyout. It's quite expensive,
It
but
is.
generally you are paying for a license, and that just means that's a fancy word for like the right to use them in a certain way. And
Correct.
so you want to make sure, because while there are budgets, of course, for photography, and as a publicist, I always ask the publication, do you have a budget? Can I loop you in with the photographer so the photographer can make, it's usually like, $200, $300, maybe it's $500 for the images to run online or whatever it is. But that's great. I want photographers to get paid for those license fees when they are there. But a lot of times they aren't there. And so you don't want to get in a situation where, I'm just using Domino as an example. It's like they may pay for, your depending on what it is. Likely it's like for roundup pieces, they're not generally going to license those images. So it would just be a bummer if like your photographer wouldn't let you use them for those purposes. So you just need to ask the question. If something comes up where a magazine wants to include an image and they don't have a budget, then what happens? Because you don't want to lose out on opportunities because you didn't know
100%.
ahead of time.
100%.
A client of mine misread her contract and thought that she had the right to use the images for press. And she had the right to pitch the images for press, but then the photographer wanted to get a licensing fee. And we secured a pretty big feature and there was no budget. And it was a thing. I mean, the photographer ended up letting her use them, but he
Right.
wasn't happy about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's just making sure that you understand your contract and negotiate that ahead of time. And you may have to pay a little bit more, but it definitely, it would be worth it.
I think it's all about the relationship that you have with your photographer on the front end. So my process is very detailed, and a lot of designers don't understand why it is so that I have questionnaires and why we have a creative brief and why we review things and why, if I can scout, I want to scout, because all of those expectations and all of those deliverables on the back end, I don't want to, it's my name, it's my reputation. And I want to ensure that what my client is asking for is what I'm delivering on the back end. And my single purpose is to help them achieve their goals. And in turn, I achieve mine. It's the best business model going.
Yeah.
I don't succeed until I help you succeed. And the only way I can do that is if we have a relationship of collaboration and understanding so that I am not a barrier to your success. I'm a partner on board working
Right.
and helping you and your PR firm achieve everything that you want to achieve, because guess what? I'm part of that team.
Totally.
And so,
A huge part.
a huge part. So, hey, send your designers
Yeah,
my way, Molly.
exactly. I will.
I
I
think you and
will.
I have a really great rapport.
I agree. I agree. Let's make
Well,
it
listen,
happen.
on that note, how can people connect with you? Where are all the places? Give us all the places we can connect with you.
So you can go to the Storied Group's Instagram, which is just at the Storied Group. You can go to my personal Instagram, which is molly.schoneveld. I know that's a hard one. And then our website is just thestoriedgroup.com if you want to read all about our services. We would
Oh,
love to work with you. We try to work with clients. We offer a project placement service. So if you are not quite ready for, full service monthly retainer PR, we do a project-based service. So it's one project, one full home tour, and one exclusive placement. We do need 20 to 25 images of your project though, and we need all of the main rooms. So I really built that service more like a product. It's like a very turnkey experience. And it's gone very well. We've placed projects in huge national publications like House Beautiful and AD, and we've placed projects in regional publications, which you really should not overlook regional because it
100%.
is powerful with this fragmented media we have.
Yes.
It can be more powerful than the national books, especially if it's a national book that's really catering more to your industry
Yes.
and not your clients.
Well, I want to piggyback just on this because I know I'm going to have a ton of questions from designers who hear that you can do project-based project an entryway to working with
Mm-hmm.
a PR professional could be project based. What would a budget of entry be for something like that, Molly?
So if we place your project, the total is $3,500 and you pay half up front. So it's $1,750 deposit. And, I know that there's other firms that don't charge deposits or they might charge a little less. But the feedback I get is that designers would rather have to pay something up front because then they know that I'm on the hook. They know that I am in it with them, and it pays for the time and our expertise because we're guiding someone through this process. And sometimes it takes a few weeks and sometimes it takes months.
Months.
And so to me, it's like, if I don't charge the deposit, if it's only a pay to play kind of thing, if only you pay if you get the project placed, to
Right.
me it just feels like I'm not invested in getting your project placed as much because
Yeah.
there's going to be other people that I can get placed and I'll just focus on those. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like the agency model of like 10% versus the PR retainer.
Yeah. And
But
there's
so
no
anyway,
guarantees.
so if we place your project, then the rest of the money is due, and then it gets you 5 pitches. So we have to make sure that if we take on your project, that we feel confident that there are 5 outlets that could be possibilities. So we really don't take on a lot of projects. We turn down a lot
Yeah.
because we don't want to take your deposit and not deliver.
Right.
That
Right.
does not feel good for anybody.
No. No.
So yeah, it's been
It's great.
really great and successful and helpful, I think, for designers who are really looking to just, dip their toe in.
Dip their toe in. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, Molly, this has been so enlightening and it's been such a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more and Erica connecting us. And I'm coming south. So hopefully we'll see
I
each
can't
other soon.
wait. I can't wait. My kitty is joining the
Oh,
conversation.
hi,
we adopt
Katie.
we
Taste
adopted little
under my feet.
kitties.
Yeah, taste under
I
my feet
know.
too,
They
somewhere here.
love to be in the mix, but it was so great to chat with you. Thank you so much for having me, and we'll be working together soon. I just know it.
Thank you, Molly. And I'm going to follow Drew's successful career. I'm so excited for him.
Thank you. Yeah, it is exciting.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Talk
Okay,
to you soon.
bye.
Bye.